surgery session where we're joined by Daniel and David, who are going to speak to us about the programme and their experiences within it. So throughout this session, if you could keep your microphones on mute, as if not, someone's coming. As to not disrupt people when they're speaking, that would be fab. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly, and then I will hand over to Daniel. And over to you, Daniel.
Hiya. I hope you all can hear me. And if you can, if you want to just put a thumbs up on your emoji, that'd be great. If not, for me to know that obviously you all can hear me. I do have a habit of talking to myself sometimes. Good. So I can see sometimes so people can hear me. Brilliant. So today I want to talk to you about the sponsorship program. My name is Daniel Leroy. I am the Senior Strategic Finance Manager for RM Partners, which is hosted by the Royal Marsden Hospital. Just a brief introduction about myself. So previously, before that, I was at Chelsea and Westminster as one of the senior finance manager for the trust, and I've been within the NHS for quite a little while actually. So I've had the opportunity to work for different NHS organisations, CCGs, CSUs, and even an arm's length body of the NHS, which is Health Education England. And prior to that, I worked in the private sector for a number of years for quite a big electronic organization called Dixons. I'm sure many of you would have heard of them, and they own Peaceable Carphone Warehouse and the likes. And I decided to move into the public sector because of my love for the NHS. And so yeah, so I've been around a little while, and so that's just a brief introduction about my very self. And I just wanted to talk to you today about the sponsorship program and what it really entails. Megan, if you could just flip to the next slide, please. So the program is a 2-year program which provides career sponsorship for high potential finance staff from underrepresented groups at director level within the NHS finance function. In particular, colleagues who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, or if you're a Black or Asian or from the ethnic minority groups. Again, this program is designed for those particular group of people, or if you have some sort of disability or you're female, and you work in finance, you work in NHS finance at any level within the at least for a minimum of 2 to 3 years experience, and you have an aspiration to progress your finance career within the NHS, then this program is geared for those individuals. The data suggests that diverse talent is less likely to progress their career within the NHS finance function or to take on more senior roles. And in 2017, the Skills Development Network, HFMA, staff census showed that while 61% of the workforce was female, only 28% of director level positions were held by women. And similarly, while BAME employees made up to 18% of the workforce, only 4% of them were directors at a BAME level. So again, this 2-year program is an initiative from FFF to address this imbalance at leadership level through a range of mechanisms, and this proposed sponsorship program is one of those. Next slide, please. I think Megan is going to play a little animation for us just to get a little bit taste of exactly a snapshot of what this program is. So please do listen.
Please let me know if you can hear this. Can you hear that?
Do you have experience working in NHS finance and see yourself progressing into a more senior role within the next 2 to 3 years? Do you identify as being from a group which is underrepresented at director level within NHS finance? This includes staff who identify as LGBTQ+, Black, Asian, and minority ethnic BAME colleagues, individuals with disabilities, and women. If you answered yes to these questions, then career sponsorship could help you to reach the next stage in your career. Future Focus Finance offer a sponsorship program that aims to help you reach your career goals by matching you with a sponsor. A sponsor is a senior representative who will have influence over your career and will act as your champion to help you to progress further up the ladder. Being sponsored gives you access to new opportunities that will build on your professional experience and gives you exposure to senior leaders within your organization, system, and region. You may have heard about career sponsorship, but not understood how this differs to mentoring. A sponsor will intervene in your career progression and put their own reputation on the line. A mentor is in the room with you, but a sponsor is in the room when you're not there. Sounds good, right? Another benefit of signing up to the program is that you are given access to a thriving network of other sponsors and sponsees currently using the program. They meet online and face-to-face to discuss their experiences and share helpful tips and advice. You will be able to connect with them to grow your professional network, and there are opportunities for job swaps and secondments. So what are you waiting for? Sign up to the program today by emailing futurefocusedfinance@nhs.net, and we will help to match you with a sponsor from your organization or STP or ICS patch. For more information, including the full sponsorship guidance pack, please visit our website.
Brilliant, awesome. Um, so that video was just a little
Well,
snippet for you
welcome
all to really
everybody. I'm Tom
understand.
Stevens, Regional Director of Finance for the Northwest for NHS.
Yes, I think we're back on track now, Megan. So that snippet there was just for us to look at exactly what the sponsorship program is all about. And I think the next slide talks about what the role of a sponsor is, and effectively what they will do. And before I talk about that, I think the first thing obviously that came to my mind when I saw the program was I thought, what's a sponsor? Well, this sounds great, but what's the difference between a sponsor and a mentor and a coach? I think that was the next question that came to my mind when I saw the program. And I took some time to look it up, and there's an information pack at the very end when that you get to see if you do decide that you want to sign up for a program that really explains it beautifully well. And I thought I would just share some of the differences between what a sponsor is, a mentor, and a coach. So a sponsor helps someone with the necessary skills and ambition to get a foot in the door and to be exposed to experiences that would help them to achieve their career aspirations. So that's what a sponsor would do. While on the other hand, a mentor helps someone who needs nurturing and developing over a longer period of time by someone they actually look up to. A coach will help someone to improve their performance at work or to develop a particular skill set. So what a sponsor also will do is they will proactively intervene, as we can see from that animation from that video earlier on. A mentor, on the other hand, is a little bit more passive and supportive, and a coach will develop the skills of individuals. uh, I think the big difference really is a sponsor will advocate for the sponsee to give career enhancing opportunities, while a mentor will provide guidance and advice on specific situations. So there are clear distinctions between a sponsor and a mentor and a coach, and I thought it would be really useful to explain that, because obviously towards the latter part of this program, and at the very end, if you do decide that you want to go for it, you need to be able to understand what would a sponsor do for me. And if you have a mentor already or you have a coach, you need to just to really understand what a sponsor will add to that. And you can still have a mentor and a sponsor and a coach. So just quickly to go through what the role of a sponsor. So a sponsor will attend regular meetings with their sponsee. It could be a monthly meetings, a fortnight meetings where it's been agreed by both parties, and it will also connect their sponsees to other senior leaders within the organization or even outside the organization. uh, and a sponsor will provide the opportunities for shadowing. They could shadow themselves. They could shadow other senior representatives within the organization or outside the organization. They will provide constructive feedback to the sponsees if for things like job applications, interview preparation, or interview feedback. Those are some of the things that a sponsor will do. They will also advise on development opportunities that the sponsee may be looking to get. So during the course of setting up the relationship, there will be a time where the sponsee and the sponsors will talk about what the sponsor is looking to achieve from this relationship, whether it is, career development, whether it is enhancing their visibility within the organization or outside the organization, whether it's getting exposure to things they would not naturally have exposure to by the virtue of the role they are currently in. Those are some of the things that a sponsor they would talk about during that first meetings. So a sponsees will advocate for your next promotion if that's something that you're looking to get out of the program. And those are some of the things that a sponsor will really do for you to really understand what the role of a sponsor is. Next slide, please, Megan. And what's the role of a sponsee? So people would also wonder, what do I have to do? So the sponsee, again, obviously, it's a mutual relationship between the sponsee and the sponsor. So, the sponsee it's got to be someone who is trustworthy, who's loyal and discreet. By the virtue of the relationship we'll have with your sponsor, there'll be a lot of discussions. There'll be a lot of confidential information that will be discussed within those meetings, and it's important that that the sponsor remains, someone who is loyal and trustworthy and will keep any information shared at those meetings discreet. And also will be someone who is open to new opportunities, someone who is not afraid to take on new challenges, someone who is not afraid to, roll up their sleeve and do something very differently. And also a sponsor is someone who will protect the personal brand of the sponsor. I saw this and I thought, actually, this is also a good one, because, as a sponsee, having a relationship with a sponsor, you've got to be able to protect the personal brand of your sponsor. And what that means is the sponsor putting themselves out on the line for you, putting their reputation out on the line, and you've got to be able to protect and enhance that personal brand of the sponsor by protecting it. And the role of the sponsor also is to be able to bring a different perspective to the sponsor, either through reverse mentoring, where as someone from an underrepresented group, you bring in a different perspective for the sponsor to actually being able to see things through a different lens. And I think that's one of the great things of being a sponsee in this particular relationship. Next slide, please, Megan. So what's the benefit of a sponsor? And I've heard people ask me, so what is in it for a sponsor? What would they even want to be in this program in the first place? Because it looks like it would just benefit just a sponsee. But no, I think there are a lot of things that a sponsor stands to benefit from having this relationship. They get new insights into the other roles within the organization, or outside their region, or someone from a different background. They also get involved in making a positive change within NHS finance by developing the pipeline for the future, for future leadership positions. They also develop a loyal group of people who can support them in their own career ambitions. Time and time again, I've seen where you will have a finance director or a CFO or someone who's got promoted within an organization, transition to a new organization, and then lo and behold, you would find one or two staffs or one of their very loyal staff or people who are called maybe mentees, who they mentor, transition with them to the new organization. And that's part of one of the benefits of being a sponsor, is that they have those loyal ambassadors or loyal group of people that can support them even in their own career journey. And so that's one of the benefits they do get. They also engage in reverse mentoring, again, learning from their sponsee, seeing things differently from a different lens, from a different perspective. is some of the things they would also benefit, and they get the ability to attract and retain talented staff. So a sponsor not only just has this one of meetings with the sponsee either on a fortnight or monthly basis, but they then attract very good talents that they can actually retain within the organization or retain within their region. So those are some of the benefits of being a sponsor if you're thinking of being one. Next slide, please, Megan. So representation across the country. There's about 187 sponsees across the country, and there's about 181 sponsors across the country. So effectively, you could say like a one-to-one match. So there are a lot of people out there who are sponsors, and a lot of people out there who are sponsees. So it's effectively almost like a one-to-one match. If you're thinking of becoming a sponsor or a sponsee, there is a place for that to happen. And I think from FFF, the idea is that within each region to have a finance director to sign up for the program, and within each organization to have at least one sponsee from their finance department to be sponsored, and to set time aside to attend regional sponsor meetings, because we have quite a few regional sponsor meetings where sponsors get the chance to meet like-minded people who are on the same program and can share ideas of how their program is progressing with their sponsors or whatever challenges they may face. Then they get the opportunity to be able to network with like-minded individuals, brainstorm ideas together, and how they can help each other to move forward. And I really wanted to add in here the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. The real distinction between a mentor and a sponsor is that a sponsor intervenes and puts their own reputation on the line, while a mentor is in the room with you. A sponsor is in the room when you're not there, and I think that's a real difference right there, where a lot of people from underrepresented backgrounds, especially where people say, oh, it is who type of a thing. But having a sponsor who is in the room when you're not there advocating for you, I think can really make a really long lasting difference to your career within the NHS. Next slide, please, Megan. I don't know if that's the last one. Yeah. So the sign up process for sponsors. So if you're someone who's looking to be a sponsor or even a sponsee, then if you email Future Focus Finance at nhs.net, again, they would officially sign you up for the program. And once you email them, they would get in touch with you. And the idea is, they would send you a whole lot of information. When I say a whole lot of information about the program and what it really entails, there is a self-assessment toolkit, which allows you to kind of like walk through the criteria and the things that you need to really meet, which I described earlier on, to understand if this is right for you, if the sponsorship is right for you, or if it's a mentorship program that you should be pursuing, or a coaching one, for example. And once you are added to the program, then depending on what region you're in, they would provide you with a list of possible sponsors within your catchment area, where you can then obviously get some more information about the sponsor, and then you can decide which of the sponsors obviously you're interested obviously in pairing yourselves with. They will reach out to the sponsor on your behalf, and then there will be sort of engagement in that sense, and then obviously you would then have your first sort of exchange of emails with your sponsor, and then you can arrange a meeting, whether that is going to be a monthly meetings or fortnight meetings, whatever that case may be. And then it then progresses from there. But it's more of a relationship where it's a mutual relationship, but I personally think it's driven by the sponsee, where you make active effort with your sponsors to develop what your objectives and aims are, and they work with you to help you on that journey, in getting there effectively. And I think that that brings us to the first part of the segment, which is which is around the sponsorship program. The next session, Megan, if you're happy for me to carry on.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we could just roll into the next session because you're going to be speaking again.
So the next session really is about my personal account being on the program in itself. So I came across the program through uh, my, my CFO at the time, and I thought it was a great program. Like I said earlier on, I looked it up and I wondered what's the difference between a sponsor, a coach, and a mentor? Because I already have a mentor, and I thought, what other benefit would it be for me to have a sponsor? And looking at it, I've had the opportunity to work, in many NHS organizations, and I thought, I think this can just be the difference to my career. And it's been quite, it's been it's challenges trying to work with my sponsor to get to where I'm in now. So um I've been in the program in the program for just under a year, uh and I remember my first sort of meeting with my sponsor, trying to sort of explain my career aspirations and where I am with things and what I was looking to achieve. And it was a bit daunting because at the time my sponsor actually um, was the CFO of my organization. So I think there was a real challenge for me personally around what I could discuss and what I could not discuss. Again, um, that was a terrain I had to navigate. But I think as the relationship progressed, the trust developed in the relationship, and it became a relate. So we will have our meetings every month, and it started by we have half an hour sessions every month to talk about my aims and objectives and what I wanted to do and what she can bring as a sponsor. And if you're things that she did to help was to create awareness for me within the organization. I was opportunity to go to meetings that I would never had opportunity to go to by the virtue of the role I was operating at the time, like board meetings, executive meetings, like the audit and risk committee meetings, exposure to to things outside the organization, and that really gave me uh, the kind of exposure, especially when you go to some of these meetings that you go to. Sometimes you kind of like struggle as to how you assimilate the information being disseminated there or how you articulate yourself. And I think that's some of the things I sort of benefited in that particular initiative, which is really, really great. But as time progressed, I think the trust between myself and my sponsor kind of like kind of like really, really improved. Um, and opportunities came by. I think, like I said earlier on, that a sponsor is someone who continuously advocates for you. And I think even the role that I'm in now, my sponsor played an instrumental part in getting me to where I am today. Again, like I said, a sponsor will have that influence, that you may not necessarily have, and able to carry that kind of like weight to influence all the senior finance leaders to say, actually, I think you should take a chance with this particular person, or they have this particular skill set, they have this particular attribute. It is something that you're looking for in your team, and it's certainly obviously something that I sort of benefited in, and I'm still benefiting now. And like I said, the relationship is one that evolves with time. Um, and our meeting started as half an hour meetings and now has progressed like an hour a month meeting where we feel, I was thinking, are we going to be able to fill this 1 hour with things to talk about? But the 1 hour goes very, very quickly. That even outside our 1 hour meeting on a month-to-month basis, we will have, if frequent catch-ups. She provided me access to her phone number, where if there's anything urgent or things that I want to talk to her about, I can always, give my sponsor a ring to say, oh, actually, I wanted to talk to you about this because, there is an application I'm putting through, or there is this interview I'm going to, and I wondered if you had, the time for us to go on, So, you know, it took time to get to that position or that time or that place where we can have that kind of like, you know, relationship where we move from 30 minutes to an hour to, you know, we now have a, you know, a wonderful blossoming relationship. And so that's my sort of personal account of the program, and I think it's a wonder initiative for anyone who's looking to have a sponsor or wanting to be a sponsor. The benefits are immense, particularly for people who are from underrepresented groups, like, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction. And that's my personal account of my sponsorship journey so far. Yeah, that's it, Megan. I think I'm going to leave the floor for, I think, David. I'm sure is got a lot to add to what I've said, and obviously from a sponsor's perspective, I'm sure you will have one or two things to add to.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel. That was really helpful. If anyone does have any questions at all, we've got a Q&A session at the end, so just hold on to them and we will come back to you once we've heard from David, who is on the sponsorship programme as a sponsor. So over to you, David.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks Daniel for that. Yes, so the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that the original agenda had myself and my sponsee Rebecca doing a bit of a double act about our reflective experiences of the programme. Unfortunately, Rebecca had some sad news this morning. One of her relatives passed away overnight, so she's dropped out. And thank you, Daniel, for in 3 hours' notice sharing your personal experiences, which at 9 o'clock this morning I don't think you were expecting to do. So thank you for that. So I'll just go through sort of from the sponsor's perspective, but I'll build in as well some of the things I know that Becky has experienced and has shared with me as part of that relationship. So I was matched to a sponsee back in October of last year, so almost 12 months now that I've been involved in the programme. And Becky, who is my sponsee, works at Mid and South Essex University Hospitals. I, as Director of Finance, are in Hertfordshire Community Trust. We talk for about 30 minutes every fortnight. That's the plan. Inevitably, sometimes it doesn't quite work like that, but that's what we aspire to do. Slightly different, I think, Daniel, to your experience, that COVID has meant all our contacts have been remote using Teams and telephones, and we've never actually met, but we've still worked on developing that relationship. And it's much more of a it's much more of a personal relationship than the sort of semi-formal mentor-mentee relationship that is often, as Daniel said, focused on work-related issues. So we set out early on just to get to know each other. We shared background information, both work-related and families who are personal-related, and that's helped to develop that relationship where, you know, I hope she would say, I think she would say, Beck would say, she can pick the phone up and talk to me whenever she wants to. I have a better understanding of her career aspirations. She has an understanding of my background and areas where I can give her support as a sponsor. And we don't really talk that much about day-to-day work issues that you would expect to discuss in a mentor relationship. Just a bit of background then about Becky and about myself. So Becky, as a sponsee, came into the NHS relatively recently, part qualified, previously run her own business, quite confident as a presenter of information. She's active in FFF accreditation work. She's worked on merging 3 acute hospitals to form that Mid and South Essex Hospital, and she works on the development of service line reporting. So those are the things that are part of her background. For myself, slightly long in the tooth now. I've been in the NHS since 1990, and I've been in Director of Finance or similar senior roles since 2000. I spent 8 years working independently on a consultancy basis. I was a member of the HFMA's Accounting Standards Committee for 25 years, and I chaired it for 10 years up to 2019. And I was part of the original group that created the HFMA Academy Diploma and Higher Diploma courses, and was the Academy's Chief Assessor for 3 years. I've been in my current role, Director of Finance at Herts Community Trust, since July of 2018. So that sort of sort of reinforces that, as Daniel described, that sort of senior individual acting as a sponsor to help individuals who are developing their career and have aspirations to develop their career. I think Becky, if she was here, would be saying what's she expecting to get out of it. She'd probably say she wants some help and guidance on building a network outside of her employer, and some support around career development. For myself, I think I recognise that throughout my career I've had help and support from managers, from the HFMA, from systems, from regional colleagues, and I've built up a large network of contacts as a result of that. And for me, the sponsorship programme is about, it's almost a logical continuation of that support that I've had, but turning it around and moving from a receiver of support to a giver of support, and helping the development of careers in what I say is the next generation of sort of senior finance professionals. And I also, you know, from a very sort of personal perspective, I get a much better understanding of what's going on in the large acute hospital from a sort of a grassroots ground level through Becky than I might get through talking to her doc in any meeting. And that in turn helps me and sort of gives me some ideas and thoughts about what can I do in terms of turning some of that into the development of the actual small team, finance team that I have within the community trust here as well. Just to give you a flavour of some of the things that we've done over the last sort of 12 months or so, I introduced Becky to the HFMA conference team as a potential presenter at workshops. Her areas of strength, I said before, FFF accreditation, merger activities, costing, service line reporting, clicks, things like that. So she's now in that sort of network of potential presenters at workshops that the HFMA have got, whether it be at national or local level. So in time, that will help to increase her exposure and presence. It does help that she is quite a confident person and is not shy at standing up and talking, and that's one of the skills. But it's, you know, you have to identify those skills and you have to sort of tap in and help develop those. I've supported her in getting involved in the delivery of the East of England HFMA conference, branch conference earlier this year, as part of raising her profile across the wider East of England. We've spent quite a lot of time talking through the development of her career plan. We've been mapping her person specs of potential future roles against her existing skills, identifying some gaps, and that in turn has helped her to understand, you know, what are the sort of the roles she needs to go into as stepping stones to fill some specific gaps as a precursor to moving on over the duration of her career. And I've also, I mean, Daniel, I think you mentioned about attending some of the committee meetings. I've arranged that over the next few months, Becky will be joining our audit committees, our finance and performance committees, and our trust board, shadowing me, raising her profile again, but also giving her some experience of the workings of those formal committees that you might, you know, the ones that are non-exec director led, that you might not otherwise get within your own organisation. We've talked through a number of jobs that she's been interested in, the out to advert, the pros and cons of applying, whether it would help her career, whether it would sort of put her in a box that meant that she closed off opportunities elsewhere in the future. And we've reviewed job descriptions. I've drafted, you know, these are the sort of interview questions that you would probably expect for this sort of role. How would you get on in responding to them? And quite recently, East of England region held a little competition offering 10 places at this year's HFMA conference as a development opportunity. So supported Becky in putting an application in for that, and she's secured one of those places. So she'll be coming down to the conference with me in December, and that'll give her some opportunities to learn from that conference, and then as sponsor, I'll be able to sort of face-to-face introduce her to other people in my network as part of raising her profile further. And then we've also done a little bit, because she's just finishing off some of her studying. We've done a little bit of work around some of her study techniques and sort of some of the work she's been doing around preparing for some of the exams she's been completing. So is, Megan, that was broadly what I was going to say in terms of some of the work we've been doing over the last 12 months or so.
That's great. Oh, that's great. Thanks so much, David. So our next session is going to be a Q&A for both David, Daniel, and also I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have more for like the central team side of the programme. So does anyone have any questions at all? If you do, just either pop your hand up or you can drop it in the chat and I'm happy to read that out if you don't want to speak out. Pando?
David, what are the challenges that you would say you'd faced as a sponsor, and what are the things that you think will make the program even better?
I think for me, I guess the main challenge for me is making sure that the support I'm giving to the sponsee is the support that is appropriate to the sponsee and not something that I think, it's got to be relevant to what the sponsee wants. It's not me telling them what they should do per se. It's understanding where the sponsee is trying to get to and adapting your advice to help get to that point. If my sponsee had said, I wanted to develop and become a senior finance senior finance in, say, the costing side of life, it would be wrong for me to say, I think you should work on, I'll introduce you to people around financial services and technical accounting. I've got to sort of step back and listen and understand what the sponsee actually wants and what they want to get out of it and help to deliver and help them get out of it what they want, not give them what I think they want. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think just to add to what David said, I think obviously that's really crucial. Actually, it's an important one because I remember obviously when I sort of started my sponsorship journey with my sponsor. I think it was one of those ones where she wanted to know exactly, she wasn't trying to give the kind of like support that she thought, I was the best support. It was more around tailoring her support to what I wanted to get out of my relationship with her or the sponsorship program. And I was tailored that way. And the conversation was around, understanding, what it is you're doing now. What do you want to do going forward? Where do you see yourself, in a year's time? And again, when I do present opportunities, actually I came across these and I came across that, brainstorming those together, and actually saying, during our conversations, you talked about this is what you want to do, in the near future. How does that align with that? How does that align with what you're trying to do? And having those someone to kind of like critically ask you those questions and for you to kind of think and engage your thought process to say, you know, David mentioned something about, making sure that, you're not applying for roles that would then obviously, put you in a box and, close off your career opportunities, and having someone to have that kind of like, useful discussion and engaging your thought process to think actually, you know, is this role going to get me to where my long-term aspirations are, where I think I want to be? Um, and having that conversation earlier on, so actually, if you want to go, fine. And then looking at, the possible sort of, questions they may ask you, how are you going to draw into your previous experience? How are you going to align that? How are you going to answer the questions? And how are you going to draw, tapping from your, your current experience, your previous experience into the new role where they say, actually, what experience do you have that you will bring into this role? How are you can actually draw those? And I think that's one of the things that, my Spencer really, really helped me with to ensure that, you're not just obviously applying for roles for the sake of applying for it, if that's what you want, but also making sure that you understand that you have uh, a goal and you know what the goal is and what you're trying to get to. because sometimes it might be very difficult. People ask, how do you know, where where do you want to be? How do you even know where you want to be in 5 years, 4 years time? But again, this comes from thinking about it for a little while. As you say, actually, Daniel, I'm gonna, we will close off some of our meetings, and she would say, she will post some questions to me, and I'll be thinking, that's a very good question. I may not say, well, you don't have to answer that question now during our next session. I think, come back with what you think, your answers are, and then it would give me some time to then reflect on it and reflect on what it is I'm trying to achieve, and come back actually, okay, I'm in this new role. I think this is what I want to get out of it, and this is where I want to go to, and then we can then talk about how does that align with your future aspirations, and have some constructive conversation about it. So I think when you asked that question, Tony, I think obviously that really resonated with me when David was talking about some of our conversations with Rebecca. I'm not sure if that's useful to you, Tony.
Thanks, David and Daniel. That's really helpful responses. Do we have any other questions for us before we finish up today? One's just come in through the chat. So it's, can the sponsee apply direct for a sponsor, or do they have to do it via their trust? Who is responsible for allocating a sponsee to a sponsor? Okay, so this, I'm happy to answer this one, guys, because it's more of the application process. So when a sponsee decides they want to sign up, they'll contact us at Future Focus Finance. From there, we'll share with you information on the programme, and we'll also take some extra details off you, so sort of why you've signed up, where you're located in the country, and things like that. After taking that information, we're then able to filter down our network of sponsors that we've got signed up to find the one most appropriate for you. We try to do this based on organisation, ICS or STP, and that's mainly so that your sponsor has a bit of a pull over the organisations and the networks in your region. So it would make no sense to pair someone from London with someone in the northeast if they're looking for jobs in London. The networks don't seem to match up. Having said that, we do have relationships over separate regions which do work, so it's very much a individual basis, but that's sort of the starting point. But if you have someone particular that you want to work with that is outside of your organisation, ICS or STP, then it's no problem at all. We can pair you with them as well. So yeah, once you have let us know who it is you would like to work with, we then in the central team will contact that sponsor and ask them if they are still available and are happy to be paired with you. And once they come back, and if they say yes, we'll then send an introductory email, basically outlining who the sponsor and sponsee is, and that for you to basically have an introductory call. The introductory call is down to the sponsee to arrange this, because you're wanting that sponsor's time, and in that initial call you kind of are going to outline what your aims and objectives are within the programme, and try and ascertain whether the sponsor is able to support you in that. And once you've had that conversation, you can let us know that you're happy to proceed, or you can decide that actually it's not going to work and you can look for someone else. So that's the beginning steps of the process of signing up. David, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to expand on that, because I think the thing I didn't say, it was about 3 months between me initially saying I was happy to be a sponsor and sort of Megan, you and the rest of the team, so we were doing that matching process with my sponsee. And I think on one of the slides earlier on, I think you said there are about 180 sponsors on the programme across the country, but I don't think from memory that all of them have been fully matched with sponsees at the moment.
No, we've definitely got some sponsors that aren't matched up with sponsees, and vice versa. We've got some new sponsees that haven't been paired yet. We are currently doing a big push to get some more sponsors so that we don't tables don't turn and we run out of sponsors for sponsees. But that's an ongoing engagement job for us in the central team. Wonu?
Hi all. My question was just around getting, so in terms of getting matched with a sponsor, it'll be quite good to sort of like get a profile of the sponsor so that you're able to sort of I don't know, is that like is that a place where you can find a profile of sponsors that you feel like you'll work best with, or is it just what you get allocated to that you can make a choice from?
So at the moment, this is a really good question because we're actually changing the process as we speak. At the moment, we just basically have their name and their organisation and their job title, and we will give you, for example, 4 people that would be relevant to you based on where you're located, and then it is down to the sponsor to do a bit of digging at the moment. So have a look on their trust website, have a look at their LinkedIn and things like that to work out a bit more about the sponsor themselves. But we are currently working on a new process, whereas when sponsors sign up, they will write a short blurb on why they're getting involved and what they have to offer. So then it would make that process a little bit quicker. But at the moment, you just get given a list, and then you have to sort of have a little investigation about who you want to work with. Yeah, Winnie, is that another question?
So we've got another one.
Okay.
It's just from a perspective of like, if for me entering into a sponsor-sponsee relationship, I would have like specific objectives I'm looking to achieve. So do you gather the pool of sponsors based on a theme, or is it just whoever is willing to become a sponsor?
So at the moment, it's just whoever's willing and whoever has signed up. But it's great that you've got a list of objectives, because that'd be really good for starting your relationship. But for example, if you would, like I said earlier, if you were to pick someone, it's that initial conversation is where you kind of work out, do your objectives align with what they have to offer? And then if it does, happy days. If not, we can back to the drawing board and we can get you paired with someone else. But I'll let David come in and then Daniel on this one.
I think you've almost taken the words out of my mouth. I was going to say exactly the same. That first meeting is that point when sponsor and sponsee come together, and the sponsee sort of articulates what they're wanting to get out of the process, and there is that understanding of, is there almost a sort of something that people can work with together, and it's no shame to say actually this is not going to work and look for someone else.
Yeah, exactly that. And there's also the personality side of it as well. Like you need to see if you actually are compatible on a personal level as well as a professional. Daniel?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to, what David has mentioned earlier on. I think obviously, currently the way it works obviously is what Megan has described. Obviously, that they would provide you with a list of names, and I think when I did apply for the program was obviously the list. I've got the list of names, and with the wonderful world of technology, you can almost obviously Google a lot, wherever you want to Google, and kind of like work out, what they are. And bear in mind as well that obviously, anyone that they probably will be a sponsor will be a high profile senior finance person anyway. So they will have the opportunity to work in different roles, and possibly maybe different organizations. So they would still have a breadth of experience, obviously, that I think they can sort of offer. But I agree with you, one around, if you've got a set of aims and objectives, and you want to know who's best, sort of the best person to kind of like help you to attain. And I think the first conversation that you have with your sponsor, I think will help you to kind of like gauge that. And I think for me, in my sort of experience, or in my sort of perspective, was around that I already knew the person I wanted to be my sponsor. So I think that kind of like really did help, to narrow down the sponsor I wanted, because I'd already seen their sort of roles they've worked in, and where and what they've done, and I was happy to have that person as my sponsor. And it was a matter of whether they had the time and the capacity to take me on. But I think it's a good point, Warren, about having sponsors with having a profile of of what their experience are, and what they can possibly offer, and you can basically just look at that and matches it, rather than what we do now, which is effectively you get a list of names and you can almost kind of like look them up and do your own fact finding to understand what they are into, what their career journey is like. And obviously when you have that initial first conversation with on the phone, you can gauge at a stand. You can gauge quite quickly, if you think they're going to be the right person for you from the tone on how that conversation flows. Not necessarily maybe the first time, but I've had instances where people have said, they've been paired with a sponsor, and after a few sort of meetings, it hasn't sort of worked out, the way they would have preferred or they would have liked, and they didn't think that the relationship was going to be one that's going to help them to achieve their objectives, and they were able to have this healthy, when I say healthy, have a frank conversation to say, it was obviously with the support and help of FFF around finding a new sponsor for them. So, but I think the idea of having sponsors with their profile will probably then lessen that if we had something like that in the first place. So yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. I think we have time for one more question, if there is anyone else with another question. Two. Tanda, your hand is at the top of my list, so we'll go for you and then we'll come back to Ronu.
You would think that everyone with the protected characteristics would jump on the opportunity to come to a program like this, but sometimes the feedback that we get from people, like when you talk to them and try and convince them to join the sponsorship program, is that they don't feel comfortable about it. They feel they don't want to gain an advantage because of their skin color, for example. I wonder if anybody else has heard that, or what would you say to those people?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because it has come up before, and I'd say it's not exactly, I wouldn't say it's giving them an advantage. I'd say it's more leveling the playing field, because at the moment there is a disadvantage there, and this is therefore bringing the playing field, like I said, level, so everyone's got that fair chance. That's what I personally would say. I don't know if David or Daniel had anything else they wanted to add on that point.
I'd agree. It's much more about leveling up than from my perspective.
Thanks, David. So moving on, last question of the session, Wonu.
It's just a question around why 2 years, because I think in the slides previously it said it's sort of like a 2-year program. It's just trying to understand why that time frame. Is it flexible or is it fixed for that duration of time?
No, it's very much flexible. So we say 2 years because it's a long enough period of time for you sort of to get to know your sponsor, and we thought it's enough time for you to really get something out of the program, but we're not going to kick you off the program after 2 years. You've got plenty of sponsor relationships that have been going on longer. All I'd say is your relationship will definitely develop and change over those 2 years. So to start with, it would be very much quite full on, and you'll be meeting really regularly, and your sponsor will be very much helping you to reach your goals. But as time goes on and you've progressed and you've hit a lot of those objectives, become a lot more of a hands-off relationship. So some of our sponsors that have been with us for a while, their sponsors, they don't meet with them all the time anymore, but they're a phone call away if they have a question or an issue, or even you might outgrow your sponsor within 2 years, and they can no longer help you reach your new aims and objectives, and at that point you can then swap in and find someone else who is more appropriate at that time. So it's program's very flexible in all aspects, really. It's very much your own personal journey, and we're happy to accommodate for everyone. Daniel?
Yeah, just quickly to add to what Megan said, it says 2 years, like you said, it's just enough time for you to kind of like build that relationship with your sponsor. And it may turn out that you don't need to be there in that relationship for 2 years. I've had my sponsor say to me after just under a year, and she's saying, do you think the relationship is still, appropriate, still working? Because I've transitioned into a new role now, and my aims and objectives obviously have slightly shifted a little bit, and we had to revisit obviously what I set out, at the beginning of our sort of relationship, and to see if those things are still fit for purpose. And the agreement was actually we will carry on. So it may be that it may not, it may be that obviously the relationship terminates after 1 year and you find a different sponsor, depending on your journey, obviously, as you transition within that sort of program. So 2 years just like a guideline.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, so we're pretty much out of time now. So thank you so much, David and Daniel, for coming along and speaking to everyone. I think it's really helpful, and I hope that it's cleared some things up for people that are looking to join the programme and help some of our attendees who are already on the programme. I'll circulate afterwards some information, our documentation, just in case people haven't seen it. But yeah, thank you again for all of your help, and I'll see you all soon.